What is up, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to integrate Business Central with an external API application. So before I get into the video, I would like to say thank you. We already added one, and remember the target for this year is times 2 of 700, which I believe is 1,400 subscribers. So that's our target for this year. That's the goal for the year. So after this video, if you still I have a request. I believe so. I have a video request of making a report, and stay tuned. After this particular video, I am going to also shoot this specific video. So the only prerequisite you need to have is you need to go and check my videos, understanding JSON objects, JSON array. So this will be a prerequisite for this video. So if you have watched this video, so you can follow along with me, and let's integrate Business Central with external API platform. So we are just going to come and search for free API for testing, and we can just choose randomly. Let me see. So we can choose an API to work with. All right, so if you're new to this channel, I offer Business Central application, functional and also developer learning circle. All right, so let's see so let's see what this does. Cat fact. So let's work with this. Let me see how to control click you, stop you. All right, so this is an API, is a cat fact. We have a JSON respond, which we have a fact, and also we have the length. So let's try integrating Business Central and fetching this data. All right, so let's get started. So I have a blank environment. As you can see, I created a folder called API with Business Central, and you can see we have nothing currently within this page. Okay, so what can we do? We want to create a folder called Codeunit. Right. So we also want to create a, let's say, page extension. So this is where we test the application. So I want to say page extension, right? So we are going to be extending the item, right? .al. So we want to extend the page extension. So if you are new to Business Central Development, please go and check my previous videos. I believe I have videos that can guide you as a beginner. So let's say item extension. I do not really want to waste any time, right? So we're extending the item, right? Is the items? Let's see. Okay, that's item card. Right. All right. Let's just extend item lists. Okay, so basically this is all we have. We only want to extend the action button. So before we go there, let's work with the main course, which is the API. So let's just say it's api.al. So the normal code unit. So I'll give this an ID also as 5500, and then I'll just say I would call this an API test, or let's say API. Yeah, test is okay. So what I want to do here is I want to define a procedure. So I want to say get, let's just say get API data, right? So I would have my public variable, and also I have a begin and end. So basically this is all we have. Now, before we get into the what to use, let's take for instance, let's say I want to actually visit this specific link. You can see on my HTTPS request, there should be something that is able to achieve this purpose, right? So let's start from there. So Business Central offer what we call clients. So I can create a variable called client and say this is HTTP client. So this specifically is responsible for routing our request using the HTTP protocol, right? So the next thing we need is, okay, once we send a request, as you can see here, we sent a request here, and then the browser responded to us giving us this specific data. So we need something that can house this data. So let's go. So we say response, if I can spell. So we also have HTTP response message, right? So let's see. So we need somewhere to keep whatever response we get. So we can just define what we call a data and call it a text, right? So let's see what's left. So we need the link, which is called URL. So URL should also be a text, right? Now we are certain that whatever data we are getting is in a JSON format. So we need something that can digest a JSON data. So we see JSON objects. So we can now say JSON objects, right? So once we have a JSON object, we need a token to keep record of the value that we got. So we can also say JSON token, right? So I currently have a video on this. Like I said, if you find this difficult for you to comprehend, you can go watch that specific video. All right, so the first thing we need to do is let's define the URL. We can say the URL equals, let's go copy the URL. I can copy this, right? So you can paste this here. All right, so the next thing to do is we want to call the client. As you can see, we are making a get request. A get request is what we are making here to get the specific request. So we need to also specify that client dot get, right? So what do we want to get? We want to get this URL. So this would return a boolean if this URL is actually good, and this would return true. So we need to also keep a check on it and say if this is not true, right? So that we can structure our error code. So we can now see, so I forgot to say, you can see we have an highlighted error. That's because if I over this get, you see that get takes two arguments. The first is the path, which is the URL, and also a response. So it's always okay for us to let the client know where we want to keep this response. So we are saying, okay, visit this URL, but put the response inside this variable called response. This is pretty much straightforward. So what if I was given a bad URL, so I should be able to get a specific error, right? So I can now say um, invalid URL provided, right? So now we are assuming if we didn't get an error, we are assuming that it went, so the URL link is fine, but yet we need to know the status of what we are getting. So I can also say if response dot http status code. So no, we can also say we want to check if it is successful. If it is not successful, we want to give an error. If it is not successful, response uh, has a function called a successful code. This returns 200, and that shows that the request was successful. So we are now checking if it is not successful. Then we now can say error and give a custom error. We can say um, um, response status. So we can just say return status, and then we can just check we can return a variable and say response dot http. So we can see something went wrong, error status is, right? So we can now say something went wrong, error status is, we return the whatever status was returned by this response. So if we have successfully gotten to this phase and we have no error, this means our request worked fine. So we want somewhere we can keep the response. So I can now call on response and say dot content. So I want to get whatever content is inside this response, but then I want to also keep it inside a variable called data, right? So that I can later reference to this data. So I have gotten a response, and within the response I have the header and I also have the body. But now I want to be specific with the body. What response am I getting? So I want to keep it inside this data, right? So I can now call my JSON object. I can say JSON object dot read from. So I want this JSON to read this specific data, right? So I can also, it's also a good idea to say if it does this, if JSON dot read data, if it can read this data, then I can say it should do whatever is within this begin and end, right? This makes more sense. This helps you manage your error in terms of when you start to have error, you are able to troubleshoot where exactly to fix this specific error. So I can then say, all right, now I'm sure that this JSON object now has this specific data. Now what I want to do is I want to message individual data. Let's see. So I want to be able to message facts, and also I want to be able to message the length. So I can further say if JSON object dot gets. So within this document, the data it has gotten, I'm now checking if it has what we call fact. Does it have fact? If it has a fact, then I want it to keep whatever is in that fact and keep it inside this token, right? This is essentially what it means. So I can now say then I want to message API fact is. So I can pass a variable and say, right? So I can take the JSON token and say JSON token dot as value. I want to get the value of what this token has already gotten, but I want to get this value as a text, right? This makes more sense if you check my previous video. So I'm not just going to go into explaining in depth. So I can also do the same thing to get the length. So I'll just copy and paste this and say if it gets the length. Trust me, I want to copy this length because my spelling for length is different. So I prefer to copy this and paste this here. So I can now say API length, right, is exactly. So instead of as a text, I want it to return, since I know it's an integer, as integer. So I can return it as an integer. So basically this is all we need to do. And let's say this is because this is for simplicity's sake, we are just working with just, let's see if we can retrieve a specific data from an external API. So normally there could be more to do to this, like using the data to run some process, or using the data to update a specific record and the rest. So if you also want me to make a video that covers that, you can drop a comment below and I will do so. So basically this is all that we need to do, and the next thing I'm going to do here is so let's call it within the item. So I can say add after. Let's see, where can we add it after? Item, let's go ledger entries. So okay, we can do this, and then we can call on the action and say get fact, right? So I can also use this. I'm in a rush because I want to upload 2 videos today, and so that's about it. So I can say application area equals basic suits, promoted equals true. So I can also say promoted category equals process. So then I can make my trigger on action, right? So let's say get facts, or fact. So I can link this to a code unit. We named our API test, right? So we can then have our begin and end. So at this point we can now say fact dot get API data. So basically this is all we need to do, and I would be publishing. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I have done some configurations. Yeah. So right all right. So all right. So we have our button here. So let's click it. Get facts. Okay, so one other thing is we need to also allow HTTP request using our extension. So normally at the point of installation, we could have gone to the extension management and also allow that. But anyways, we can also do this and say allow always. So we can check this and say okay. So this will allow our application to be able to go outside. So we can see API fact is cat has three eyelids, so we can see, and then we can see length is 20. So let's run it again. Let's see if we get another random text. So we can see we have the next one. We say cat eats water because blah 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 blah. So you can see basically we are able to integrate um, business central with an external API platform. So if you like this video, please do subscribe, like, share, and also you can drop a comment below. You can request for any video that you want that is around business central application and also web development. Thank you so much for watching. I'm super excited bringing you more tutorial videos. Thanks.